Hi, everybody, and welcome to the introductory call for Vessel. This is our sixth cohort of Vessel, and this is also the cohort that I promised I'm not going to do an introductory call for. I was like, I've done Vessel so many times. I've already sold this course so many times. You could just go onto my website. You can just watch the intro call from last year, and you'll get a pretty good idea of what Vessel is. And then you have all of you people emailing me, wanting to know, like, I'm trying to get an understanding of what it is that I'm actually going to get out of Vessel. Would you do another intro call? And that part of me is like, really? I have to go on stage again? I have to speak to people again? And here I am again. And I'm here actually with a tremendous amount of gratitude that there are so many of you interested. This is our sixth cohort of this course. And there are still so many of you that are saying, hey, I want in. I want to know more. And my insecurity or discomfort with getting out here and doing another call was having to sit down and think about what it is that I'm going to say. I was so convinced that you could just go onto my website and figure out what Vessel is by going there. So I kind of logged in and said, well, what does my website say about Vessel? What does it tell the average newcomer to my site that they're going to get from this course? And I realized it doesn't say much of anything. So then, of course, my anxiety started kicking in like, oh no, did I do a poor job selling it before? Did I not explain it well? And how am I going to explain it now? And I realized after sitting with it for quite a bit is that I struggle. I struggle to talk about Vessel in a clear way because this course is not something that I do. Vessel is one of the ways in which I am. I'll explain. There are things that are easy to quantify and easy to sell. Those are the things that we do. Because the things that we do, like let's say you're an accountant, it's easy to talk about being an accountant. It's easy to sell your services as an accountant because it's about the product. It's about being an accountant and it's about what the consumer will gain by using your services, right? If you sell clothing, it's easy to talk about selling clothing because it's clothing and you can talk about what kind of clothing you sell and who you sell it to. And the other things that I do, and I do many things, right? I teach another course, another online course. If you're coming here through my site, you've probably seen it listed. I teach an online course called Ignite. It's a course for women on intimacy and sexuality. That's an easy one to talk about. Believe it or not, it's a tricky subject, but it's an easy one for me to sell because it's a subject everybody wants to know more about. It's a subject that everybody has some sort of connection to. They have some sort of feeling around it. And when they sign up for Ignite, they kind of know what they want to get out of it, and they kind of get a sense of what they are going to get out of it. I teach facilitator trainings. Again, when people sign up to train to become a facilitator, it's easy to talk about that because if you sign up to this training, you will graduate with a certification and then you will be able to practice said modality. Those are easy things to talk about. Those are easy things to sell. But Vessel, the course that was the first course, the course that started it all for me, is the one that's the hardest for me to give words to. When people ask me again about a bio, what it is that I do, my bio is fairly straightforward. I train as a hypnotherapist, I train as a breathwork facilitator, I'm licensed and certified to teach through IAC, the International Association for Counselors and Therapists. I have a cool bio, but Vessel is that thing that I never talk about, and I couldn't figure out until today, until this morning, why do I have such a hard time talking about it? And I think it's because it's more than just something I do. It's a real manifestation of who I am. And how Vessel came into being is I probably grew up feeling very similar to most of you on this call, most of anybody that I meet, feeling a little lost, a little different. I'm not even going to go into stories about trauma, right? A lot of people, when they approach me, they ask me if Vessel can help heal their trauma. People are coming at a lot of this work from a mindset or a lens of trauma. And it's important. It's important that that's a conversation that people have these days because trauma is something that we need to be moving through. But I'm not even going to go into that in our call today. When I grew up feeling a little lost and a little different, it's not that I didn't go through big things. I went through big things, but even the big things that I've been through and that you've been through, they tend to come down to the same core pain points for us all. Because isn't that what trauma really is? Trauma is not necessarily what happened to you. It's the impact that what happened to you left on you. And for most of us, that impact is it took us away from our sense of being okay and at home inside of ourselves. Whatever it was that we went through. And I meet a lot of people and I hear a lot of stories, and we've been through lots of different things. But underneath it all, that aftermath leaves many of us feeling with that same sense of broken, that I can't be home, I cannot rest inside of myself. And that's kind of how I got here. That is the framework, or some would say the pain point. I don't love using the word pain point because it makes the focus on pain, but there's usually a pain point that motivates us to work towards thriving or pleasure or growth. So in certain ways, that might be the pain point that led to the creation of Vessel. It's hard for me when I go on podcasts and people say, well, what's your story? And I've had lots of stories. Some of you even know a little bit about my background. I wasn't always known by this name, even though Fally Klein is my real name. Some of you see my face and feel like you know me from somewhere else. And it's very possible because there was a very nice chunk of time that I was known by a pen name, not my real name. I was known on world stages as Tzippi Caton. I'm the person who wrote the book Miracle Ride. It's the diary of a 16-year-old girl who had cancer. You probably read it growing up. It was published by Art Scroll Masora, super famous. And that's how I kind of got known in the wider world, for the story of a 16-year-old girl who had cancer, and she wrote a book and I was on stage speaking about it. And people tend to assume that that's my story. Oh, I had cancer as a kid, and that's what motivated me to grow and to change and to heal and all of that. And I don't know if that's my story. It's just one story. It happens to be a good story, which is why it's a good book, and it's why so many people connected to it. But the thing is that when people connected to the book that I wrote about cancer, the feedback that I got most often, and that book has gone into 7 printings, so it's been a while. It's been on the market for about maybe 16 years now. The feedback that I get most consistently is, how is it possible that I read a book about a girl with cancer and I laughed and I cried on the same page? How is it possible that I was feeling guilty for laughing at you for having cancer? And my reaction to that is, yes, that's exactly what I wanted, because cancer is not my story. It's just one story I tell. My story is something so much bigger than the things I have gone through. The paradigm, the lens through which I see the world, is we get to tell our own story. My story is a story of wanting to come home, of wanting to find joy in everyday moments, no matter what those moments were bringing me, whether they were bringing me more laundry and more making of the beds and shopping for clothing and cooking for the holidays, or an extended period of time in the hospital growing up as a teenager. That's the thing that I have always been dedicated to, way before the bigger stories that people kind of know me for. This course Vessel is not born out of one pain point. It's not one thing. It's kind of like how home, the word home, is not one thing. It's something different for each of us. Like, if I ask you about your home, every one of you on this call can tell me something, and probably we all have some things in common in each of our homes, right? All of our homes have bedrooms. They all have kitchens. I'm going to assume all of our homes have bathrooms and a fair amount of closets, right? There are certain elements that every single home has. We each have an idea of what a home should look like, what a home should contain, but the experience of home, it looks and it feels different to us all. And so Vessel, when I created Vessel, what I was trying to create was a framework to help people, but mostly to help myself, come home to myself. And that's why it's hard to talk about. It's the easiest thing to talk about because talking about Vessel is kind of like talking about coming home, but it's also the hardest thing to talk about because home is different for each one of us. The experience that we're each looking for is going to be unique. Most of us are searching for something. The workshops that I run, and again, if you came here through my website, you will have seen something about it there. The workshops that I run for women are called IA. IA is a Hebrew word that denotes seeking. It's a word for searching. In the Torah, the word Aye is used a number of times, but the time that really sticks out to me was a time in Genesis, in Sefer Bereshis, when God, Hashem, asks Avram Avinu, Abraham, Aye Sarah Ishtacha, where is your wife, Sarah? And the answer that Avraham gives is, Hinei ba'ohel, she's in the tent. For me, that little conversation, it's a capsule conversation. There are many conversations that happen between Hashem and Avraham and Hashem and our other prophets, but that capsule conversation, it landed for me in such a deep way because we all seek an ohel. We all seek a version of home. And in this conversation, who is the one seeking? It's God, it's Hashem. And the way I interpret this is that there's an element of God in each one of us. And yet we will spend lifetimes searching the world over to find Him, spirit, godliness, that essence, that thing that we're hoping to connect to, that higher something. We're going to spend lifetimes searching for it everywhere else if we aren't ever able to come home inside of ourselves. So vessel isn't really a thing that I do. It's a thing that I am. I spent a lifetime feeling a little different. I mean, probably being named Fally, which is not a very common name. And yes, for those of you who need to know, because there's always someone on a call who needs to know, is it a real name? It's absolutely 100% a real name. It is the letter Aleph spelled backwards. I don't know why it's a thing. I don't know why it's a name. I happen to think it's a very cool name. I love it very much. Why would my parents name me the letter Aleph spelled backwards? Obviously, it's because I'm the oldest in my family. Why else would you name a little kid Aleph? You're wanting to know if my next sibling is named Bays? No, that's not why they named me Aleph. That's not, it's a family name. My grandmother was named Fally. It's coming from generations, but yes, it's a real name. And growing up with a very real and very different name, yeah, it definitely contributed to me feeling a little bit out of the box, but I think I'm not the only one. There are people named Chani, and there are people named Moshe, and there are people with very nice, normal, average names who also feel a little different inside. And you know, growing up, you think that other people, they get it. They're part of this group, they're part of this club, they're fitting in. And it took me a lifetime to discern the difference between fitting in and actually belonging. They are not the same thing. I spent years, my formative years, trying so hard to fit in, because when you feel a little different, you think that there's something wrong with you. And so you do anything to not be different. You do anything to make yourself a little smaller or turn yourself into a pretzel or a different shape just to fit in, just to be part of something. And I did it. I would say, moderately successfully for years. I had the right look. I said the right things. I checked all the right boxes. Did it help? Well, if it helped, I wouldn't be here, you know? And if it helped, you wouldn't be here either. I think a lot of us have had that process of trying to fit in for a long time and telling ourselves that, oh, if I just check all of these boxes, that's when I'll be happy. That's when things will work for me. And then you wake up one day and all those boxes are checked. You have the job that you said you wanted. You're making the money that you thought you wanted to make. You have the perfect kids in the perfect school and the beautiful marriage. And something is still missing. And for me, it really came down to, again, fitting in versus belonging. You know, when you live in a home, you don't worry about fitting in. You don't have to fit in when you belong. Home is that place where you take your shoes off, you know? Home is that place where you can fall asleep on the couch and not think about who's gonna walk in. Home is that place where you could sing in the shower and not worry about who's listening because you belong. So you don't have to be like everyone else. Home is that place where you just have to be like yourself. And I didn't always know that. I thought it was all about fitting in. Belonging was something different. Belonging was having the permission to be me, to be exactly who I needed to be, exactly who I was meant to be, this different person with a different name who saw the world a little differently than everybody else. And that had to be okay. You know why it had to be okay? Because after years of trying, I realized I couldn't be anyone other than that, anyone other than this. And that's really what Vessel is for so many people who end up joining. So many people who have tried, who have done all the right things, and they're still feeling that there's something missing. And what's missing is pieces of themselves that they've cut off or locked away because they thought that these pieces were wrong. They thought that these pieces weren't okay, that these pieces were gonna block them from being accepted, being celebrated, being complete, belonging. So vessel is very much the difference between fitting in and belonging. It's that experience of, again, coming home. The thing with vessel though, and that's why I'm here again doing a 6th introduction call that I really thought I was not going to do, is that it really changes every year. We change every year. The idea of coming home to ourselves, it's kind of like the idea of tshuva. It's a great time of year to talk about this. For those of you who are watching the recording, and I don't know when you're watching this recording, this is being filmed, videoed, recorded between the days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So it's the Aseret Simei Tshuva. It's the time where we think about teshuva. And for most people, tshuva tends to mean like, oh, repentance. It doesn't mean repentance. The definition of the word teshuva means return. And the key, in Hebrew we say shoresh, but the root of the word return is the 2 letters shev, shin, bet, and it means to rest. It's the same 2 letters that are at the root of the word Shabbos. Shabbos is a day of rest. Teshuvah is an experience of resting. Where are we resting? I know it's probably surprising to you that grew up in a Beis Yaakov system like I did. You probably heard or learned of Teshuvah as this repentance, coming away from your sins and asking Hashem for mercy and all of that. I mean, there's a reason why Elul and Tishrei have this intense charge around them for a lot of people, but that's not actually what Teshuvah means. It means coming home. It means coming to a place of rest. And why wouldn't we be at home inside of ourselves? Why wouldn't be resting? Why wouldn't we feel that we could come home at rest? Wow, what is happening to my words? I did not have enough coffee this morning. Feel me? Yeah, okay, I'm not the only one, right? Okay. The things that we've been through, the things that we've been told, the things that we've absorbed and come to believe about ourselves. Well, if you believe you're a bad person, and again, that's a very base belief, right? I think our beliefs are a little more nuanced than I'm good versus I'm bad. But if we have a belief about ourselves that's not quite positive, how are we ever going to feel at home inside of ourselves? So of course we're going to escape constantly into whatever it is that we escape to. We escape to our phones, we escape into addictions, we escape even to chesed, we escape into good things, constantly doing, constantly giving. Because this idea of just being often feels like too much for us. So teshuvah is one of those things that we come back to year after year, right? The calendar just circles back and we have this month, we have this time every single year. Comes August, September, this year it's even October because we have a late year. We have to revisit these concepts. And when I was a kid, I didn't like revisiting concepts because it was kind of like, okay, it's one and done, right? Once you've done teshuvah, you don't want to think about it anymore. You don't want to come back here. As I matured, as I grew up, I realized this is the gift. These core concepts that we come back to every year, there's a reason we come back to them every year. It's because you never really finish. It's kind of like home, right? You never really finish decorating your home. You never really finish. I mean, if you're me and you're a mom of kids, by the time you finish cleaning out one set of closets, it's like, this is the year I'm going to clean the closets, right? And you go through each one of your kids' closets and you give away all the clothes that don't fit, and the closet is perfect and the closet is organized. And then by the time you finish the rest of the bedrooms, you got to go back to the first bedroom and redo it. And you're like, I just cleaned all the closets. Yeah, but a couple of seasons have passed and you accumulated more stuff and there's more mess and there's more things to go through. And cleaning closets, right? And upgrading certain elements of where you live and where you are, it's a part of life. And that's something that I learned to see about this process, is that you're never really done. It's a process that is a gift that you get to come back to. It's a way of living your life. It's like an internal housekeeping. So Vessel is different every year. And the foundations are always going to be the same. As a course, they are core principles that we need to come back to. It doesn't matter who you are. You know, vessel is one of those very interesting spaces where we have people who have never done any sort of work on themselves, but they've never gone to therapy. They're young. They just opened their minds to, hey, emotional development. That might be a thing that I might be interested in. I might want to get to know myself more. This is my first attempt. It's my first foray into this work. We have people like that. And then we have people who are counselors, therapists, teachers, Rebbitzins, who have been doing this work longer than I have and saying, I'm not done. I'm immersing myself again and again. Like I said, this is our 6th cohort. We have people who have been here for the first 5 cohorts and are coming back for a 6th year. In case that isn't clear from my website, that's something that you get to do. Once you're in Vessel, you are in forever. You come back free of charge every year. I know that's a very poor business decision on my end. Everyone who has ever advised me in business keeps telling me, that's not how this works. And for me, it's like, actually, that is how it works. Because this is a core set of principles that once you're in, you should be in forever. And it's always worked in my favor to have the people who have been here before to keep coming back year after year, because watching everyone's growth and supporting each other in our growth year after year has just been such an amazing opportunity for us all. So I don't anticipate that ever changing. Once you're in free of charge every single year. So I even have people on this call. I see some of your faces, I see some of your names who have taken Vessel before. I don't even know what you're doing on this intro call because you know Vessel. You know that I'm not going to say anything that you don't know. So I'm grateful that you're here. It's so nice to see these familiar faces supporting me. But yeah, that's the beauty of Vessel. It's these core concepts that no matter where you're at in life, whether you're a beginner, whether you're 21 or you're 65, and doing this for many years, you're always going to learn something new about yourself with these concepts. What are these concepts? Module 1, self-love. There's still a part of me that every time I say the word self-love wants to blush a little bit, because that's the thing that probably I struggle with the most. In the 8 modules of Vessel, module 1 is my biggest struggle, the struggle to love myself, to nurture myself, to take care of myself. In fact, there's a story I tell in module 1 of a good friend of mine when I first came up with the whole core curriculum of Vessel, and I sent it to her and I was like, look, this is this course that I'm going to teach. And she says, Fally, I love you, but I'm not taking this course with you. And I'm like, why? She says, because you stink at self-love. You don't take care of yourself. You forget to nurture yourself all the time. How are you going to teach a course that's built on self-love? And then I was like, you're right. And I put the course away for about a year. I didn't teach it until I actually worked a little bit more on that. And guess what? When I taught that course a year later, you think I knew anything about self-love? I still struggle with it, but that doesn't stop me from teaching it, because these are concepts that I'm still working through. I'm not a perfect person. I don't claim to have all the answers. I claim to understand the framework. But just because you have a framework doesn't mean you're a master of it. It just means you understand the path. But we're all going to spend a lifetime walking that path. I have the path. I'm not claiming to have all the answers. I just have the path. I'm walking the path along with you, and it's my privilege to come back every year, but I'm different every year. So self-love, integrity. Integrity is something that we're going to be tested on for our whole lives. What does it mean to be in integrity? Integrity with what? Integrity with whom? That's module 2. Module 3, talking about the language of emotions, emotional literacy. Emotions are a tool. Emotions are something that guide us, that help us make sense of this world that we're navigating together. We're going to need to do that all throughout the rest of our lives. We never become real masters of our emotions. We say this in Hebrew, right? Chazal say, "Ezehu gibar hakovesh et yitzro." If Chazal had to say this, who is the strong man? The man who conquers his yetzer, his inner urging, his inner desires. If they had to make such a big deal out of it, obviously it's not something that we can master in a moment. It takes a lifetime. So that's why we're in Vessel for a lifetime. Module 4, we get to talk about shadows, the parts of ourselves that we've hidden away. It's kind of like that closet in your house that you really dread cleaning. It's like you'll do everything else but clean out that closet, or, tackle the junk drawer. It's the photo album that you won't look at. That's module 4. It happens to be one of my favorites. Then comes module 5, which is, who are we really? Beyond the story that we tell about ourselves, beyond the things that we have been through, the ideas and beliefs and encounters that have shaped us. But who are we really? Beyond it all, above it all, why are we here? What's our mission? where we have to be greater than just the sum of our yesterdays, right? That's module 5. Module 6 is the one we talk about trauma. I know everyone wants to talk about trauma right away. When I meet people, the first thing they want to tell me is what happened to them. We make them wait until module 6, and there's a reason for that. Because by the time we get to trauma, you're thinking about it so differently. You're telling your story so differently. It's kind of like the way I look at my cancer story, right? People love to say, well, she had cancer and that's why she is who she is. And it's like, no, I am who I am. And that's why I got to tell the story of having cancer in a way that makes you laugh rather than in a way that makes you cry. That is module 6 on trauma. It changes your entire perspective on what you've been through and how you would like to navigate that. And then comes module 7, which is pretty much the highlight of this entire course. Actually, I'm making that up. Every week I get onto the course, every week I get onto the module and I say, this is my favorite module. And my students make fun of me and they say, Fally, you say that every week. I'm like, I know, this is my favorite module this week. But module 7 is also one of my favorites. Of the 8 modules that are all my favorites, module 7 is the module on manifestation, on when we really discover who we are, how powerful we are when we're not limited by our stories. Do you know what we were meant to bring forth into this world? Module 7 is the one that people come away with such a deep appreciation for themselves from. They walk away saying, wow, I wish I was taught this as a kid, because if I knew this about myself, I would never have kept myself so small. I would realize how powerful I am, how powerful my prayers are, how powerful my intentions are, how powerful every word I speak is. That's module 7. And then module 8 brings us right back to module 1. If module 1 is called self-love, module 8 is called love itself. It's about how to go forward into life with an orientation of love. Most of us live life from an orientation of fear. I don't. If you're reading my emails, you'll have read an email I sent out last week, and it's called But I Don't. Most of us live life from a place of but I don't. I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't do this, I am not that. Module 8 in Vessel is but I do. How can we go forth living life from a place of I do, I am, I'm ready, I'm in? Module 8 is called Love Itself. How do I bring everything I've learned forward into my life from an orientation of love? And then of course, module 8 is right, when we decide that we're committing to an orientation of love, we go right back to self-love. Because if we're going to bring love out into the world, it starts with what we can give ourselves. And so these are really core concepts that no matter who you are, no matter where you're at in life, there is always something for you in every one of the 8 modules. And every year you might be in a different place. This year, you might be in the place of trauma, where you're still thinking about trauma a lot, and you're thinking about your story, and you're thinking, I can't wait till we get to module 6, and I'm actually signing up for this entire course just for that module. Next year, you might be in a completely different place. You might be in a place of shadows. Okay, what am I ready to look at that I wasn't ready to look at before? In 2 years from now, you might be in for module 7. I know who I am, and I just want to be more. Some of you don't even know why you're here. You just feel called, you feel pulled, you feel like there's something, but you can't quite quantify it. I see you. That's me. I can't quite quantify exactly what Vessel is. And again, I think what I struggle with around Vessel is that it's very personal to me. It's a time capsule of many years of my life that I didn't have someone guiding me. I didn't have someone giving me the tools that I could have used. And I had to fumble around, making a lot of mistakes, hitting a lot of dead ends until I found those tools, those ideas, those principles that I could finally live my life according to. And when I put them together in this course, on one hand, I put it together for me, but also I put it together for you. But every time I open it up, it's like taking my still beating heart and putting it into someone else's hands and saying, this is my heart, and I hope it speaks to your heart, but also be careful with it because it's my heart. And I'm not finished with my heart. I'm not finished with Vessel. I'm not finished growing. I'm not finished evolving. And it's a big deal for me. Students who have taken Vessel with me 2 years ago or 5 years ago, they know a completely different version of me. I've grown so much, I've changed so much, and so Vessel grows and changes with me. It's something new every year. I know when I think about the idea, when I say you could come back to it every year, the ADD part in me is like, why would I do that? why would I retake something I've already taken before? I'm a one and done kind of person. You know, I read a book once and I never read it again. That's why there are so many behind me, because I don't read them again. I just collect them. And the idea of having to redo something is like, why would I do that? Except that Vessel is not something you redo, because it's never the same. It's something new because you are something new every single time. When I launched Vessel, like I said, it was like this culmination of years of content and ideas and experiences that I had put together. And it was this, I guess it was like the cherry on top for me for a long time. It's not, it's not that anymore. Today, Vessel is not necessarily the culmination of my world. It's rather an entry point into my world. In years of teaching Vessel, in years of working with people, I take feedback very seriously. I hear so many stories, and it was you. It's your emails, it's your stories, it's your feedback that have shown me that I'm not the only one in this world that is seeking. I'm not the only one in this world that's looking for more. So there's so much more that I offer today beyond Vessel. Like I said before, there's Ignite, my course for women on intimacy and sexuality. There are the facilitator trainings that I teach. I teach a course, a training on hypnotherapy, and I teach a training on breathwork facilitation. But Vessel is that place where we all start. Vessel is a prerequisite. A lot of you have been emailing me wanting to train with me, and it flatters me. It's wonderful for a girl who couldn't wait to get out of school so she never had to go to school again, to find herself teaching pretty much for the entirety of her adult life. Is like, how did this happen? And it's very mystifying and flattering to me that so many of you are interested in training with me. And the one thing that I say all the time is Vessel is the foundation. It's the prerequisite to anybody wanting to train, kind of because one of the things that I see in the world today, there are people who are struggling with a pain point. And this was kind of, you know what they say, if you spot it, you got it. So I'm speaking of my own experience when I was a little younger. I know I'm fairly young, but I mean, you know, a little earlier on in my growth. When I was really struggling, I thought the answer to my struggle, how to overcome my struggle, was to master it. So if I became someone who can give to others, I didn't have to actually go through it myself. And I see this a lot in the world today. People are in pain points and they run out and take facilitator trainings, hoping that if they become a facilitator, if they can guide other people, it means that they themselves are not in pain anymore. And it was a mistake that I made, not from necessarily a place of ego, but from a place of I didn't know any better, because there was no one out there offering any better. It was one of the reasons that I dropped out of college, because when I went to college and I was going to go for forensic psychology and I was really deep into it, I was still in a pain point that my academic instructors weren't addressing. They were sending me out into the world to help other people, but I was still in pain, and something didn't sit right with me in my mind. How was it that I was still struggling, really, really struggling with my stories, with what I had been through, with my inner beliefs? But I was this young kid with an almost diploma on the wall who was going to be given permission and a license to help other people with that. And it didn't sit well with me for many years. I had to figure out, what is it that bothered me and what did I want to do about it? And so that's why I left the world, my collegiate education, and I kind of went to everywhere and anywhere looking for answers. And Vessel is the accumulation of that. Vessel are the answers I found for myself. So Vessel became a prerequisite to the trainings that I give, because before we become a facilitator, we first have to be okay inside of ourselves. How can we take anybody to places that we haven't been yet first? And Vessel is those places inside of ourselves that we have to discover for ourselves before we could take anybody else there. It was amazing to me, actually. On a couple of weeks ago, I was on training. We're in the middle of a year-long breathwork facilitation cohort, and we were together a couple of weeks ago for our level 2 training. And at one point, there were quite a few members in the room. About 90% of the room had taken Vessel. This is the only year that I did not make Vessel a prerequisite for the training, because it was my first year giving the training. So my beta training, if you ever want to like get in under the radar, you got to get in first. Because by the time it's the second year, you got to meet all the prerequisites. So 90% of the room had taken Vessel, and the way they were talking about it, and it was amazing for me to hear their feedback about what Vessel had done. And I was reflecting as I was listening to them. I remember each person in the room and when they had first taken Vessel, whether it was they were there with the first cohort, they were there with the fifth cohort, and to be blown away at the growth and the evolution of every single person in that room, remembering who they were when they first joined the cohort, and to see them now training to become facilitators, doing masterful work, and them giving so much credit to this course. I actually shut it down. I was so uncomfortable in that moment. I wasn't prepared to take that feedback or that yeah, it was gratitude feedback. It was good feedback, but it was hard for me. It was like, really? That's what Vessel did for all of these people? Because again, it's hard for me to sell it. It's hard for me to talk about it. I'm averse to like buy my product. I don't do that, which is so weird because I was in advertising and marketing my old life. I was in advertising and marketing for years. I wrote advertisements for other people, but to advertise myself just always felt like, no, go to someone else, don't rely on me. I'm not the person. And then to hear them give me that feedback was almost like, really? Really? That's what they got out of it? That's amazing. And and then I shut it down, of course, because there's still that part of me that has a hard time hearing it or accepting it. But the stories that they were telling, these women who never dreamed that they could be more, um, a friend who left her 9 to 5 desk job to become a full-time artist who does incredible work and is now being displayed in galleries, that shift. Another one who, again, left corporate America to become a facilitator of breathwork. Just these incredible feedbacks, people telling me that they have become better parents, kinder people, more grounded, more centered inside of themselves. Some wins are big wins. Some of the stories you like to tell, some of them were the stories that you could put into emails, like, look at this fascinating story. This person went from point A to point B and it's amazing. They turned their whole life around. But the majority of the stories and the feedback that I get from this course, they're not the big ones. The ones that land deeper for me are the stories of people telling me, I wake up happier in the morning. I don't yell at my kids. I don't take things so personally anymore. I'm so much more grounded. I want more for myself. I realize I am worth more. I desire. I realize I desire. I realize that I shifted from a place of wanting, needing, to a place of desiring. Needing is a place where I'm not okay unless I have this need met. Desiring means, no, I'm okay. I'm so okay that I finally have permission to dream bigger, to want more, to believe in more. And hearing that kind of feedback, it's been humbling for me. Somebody today actually was texting me before I came on this call, and she was saying, Fally, don't you think you do a little too much? You teach all of these courses and you teach all of these facilitator training. You should probably do less. And I'm thinking, no, I need to do more. If you read and heard and witnessed the growth and the change that people are talking about as a result of having gone through these courses, these experiences, it leaves me with this awe and this feeling of, I need to do more. And that's why I'm here, giving a call that I was 100% certain I'm not going to give for our 6th cohort of Vessel, an entry call, telling you why this course matters. It really does matter. It matters not just to me, because it's my course, but it matters to the world that I want to live in. When you grow up in a pain point, whatever that pain point might be, you tell yourself a story of the world that hurt you, the people that did this to you. And so you have a vendetta. I did when I was a kid. I wanted to change the world. I didn't like the world I was living in. And I had that superhero, that Messiah complex. I wore the cape. I was going to change the world. And I fought. If you knew me when I was younger, and some of you do, because I've been a public person for quite some time. I've been on stage for quite some time. It's a weird thing growing up. I grew up in the public eye because I've been on stage since I was 15. So people know a 15-year-old version of me, and they know a mid-30s version of me, and I've grown and changed. And it's weird growing up and changing when people witness you because they judge you for it. We're supposed to change. We're supposed to evolve as we grow up. No one wants me to be the person I was at 15. You don't want to be the person you were at 15. But somehow when someone does it publicly, when they grow, when they evolve, when they learn and they change, people are like, "Oh, look at them changing. They're so unstable." And it's like, "No, I'm just being human. You just have a bird's eye view. You can see it. You can see me being human and doing it in front of you." So if you knew me when I was younger, you would know I was this. I was angry. I was passionate. I fought. I fought the system. I fought injustice. I'm not there anymore. I'm not a fighter. I still want to change the world. I do. But I do it differently. I do it by showing up. I do it by changing myself. I was having a conversation not so long ago about the 80-20 dynamic. And I'm not going to go into the whole conversation, but there was a piece of me that was thinking that 80-20 keeps showing up, that when it came to Yetzias Mitzrayim, to going out of Egypt, to only 20% of the nation left Egypt, only 20% of Klal Yisrael, 80% stayed in Mitzrayim. And I was very bothered about that. I've been very bothered about that my whole life because I kept telling myself, no, a good leader doesn't leave anybody behind. I'm going to save the whole world. I'm not content to save 20%. I'm going to save the whole world. I'm not stopping until we have 100% on board. And then in a moment of self-reflection, I realized, but that's what Vessel is. Do we really show up with 100% of ourselves? Or are we only showing up with 20%? The 20% that we think are worth saving. Most of us are living with a good percentage of ourselves, and I don't want to run the risk of saying 80%. I can speak for myself. Maybe 80% of me is in shadow. Maybe 80% of me is that stuff that I don't want to look at. So that's what Vessel is. Vessel is that ability to come back with a little more of our percentage. So maybe this year I took back 2% of what had been hiding or what I had hidden away or what I had lost. Maybe next year I'll just take another 5%. And it's about growing in small percentages. And that's how we change the world. We want to change 100% of the world, but we're only showing up with 20% of ourselves. When we start showing up with more of ourselves, that's how we affect the world. The world shows up more for us. Imagine if we were all comfortable, if we were all safe enough to live with 100% of our being. Do you know what kind of a world we would live in? So that's why Vessel is a little bit of an intimidating thing for me, because it's the world I want to live in. Vessel, for me, was the framework for the world that I want to interact with on a day-to-day. These are the people that I want to talk to. These are the people that I want to surround myself with. The people that are constantly committed to growth, to constantly committed to showing up more, and who let me do that along with them, who don't need me to be a guru. This friend of mine that was telling me, you should stop doing all of these things. You should, focus on less. What I answered her was, something that I say about everything that I do. I hope that in 10 years, I don't have to teach this course. I say it specifically around Ignite, the course on intimacy and sexuality. In 10 years, I hope for Ignite to be done. You know why I hope that I never have to teach Ignite? Because I hope that in 10 years, the women who have taken Ignite are going to teach this stuff to their daughters. I hope that by the time our children are old enough to be where we're at, they're not going to be where we're at. We will have changed the world so sufficiently that they're going to be living in that world without even needing to know that we worked so hard to create that world for them. So yeah, in 10 years, I hope that none of this exists, because I hope that we live in a world that is the world that we're building for them. Yeah, I tend to get a little bit like ineloquent when I talk about it because it's close to my heart and I stumble over my words when I feel things very strongly. Some of you have questions about what it is that you might be gaining from Vessel. If you wanted to put them in the chat, I'd be really happy to answer them because I want this to be about you. But I'm going to continue talking for a little bit longer so you have a chance to formulate your question and drop it in. A lot of the questions that I've been getting about Vessel is, what is it going to do for me? I don't know. I can't tell you that. And that's what makes this course so hard to advertise. Like I said, what does home mean to you? What does it mean to you to feel okay? What does it mean to you to come home to a place where you can kick off your shoes and fall asleep on the couch and sing in the shower? What would it mean to you to feel like you can live life that way? To feel like you're at home no matter where you are, because you're always at home inside of yourself, where you can always be who you're meant to be, who you desire to be, and not have to be different people in different places of your life. I remember this time where I was a teenager and I was shopping with a friend. We were in the mall and her mother had taken us, and we stopped into a store because she had a simcha coming up and she had to she was trying on a gown, and she was saying, I don't feel like, we were tomboys growing up. We were the kids that we didn't wear shoes because we wore rollerblades most of the time. So, so she was trying on a gown and it was fluffy and frilly. And she was like, ew, I don't want to wear this. And her mother says, a wedding is a costume party. You have to view this as a costume. It's just something that you're putting on. And I remember I went through most of my life with that in my mind. Fally, it's just a costume. You just have to put on this face. You just have to, zip up this dress or, wear the right shoes or say the right things. It's just a costume. And then at a certain point in my 20s or even 20s, I was like, nope, I'm done. I really don't like costumes. They itch. I'm really ready to live a life where I don't have to put on a different face for every person that I meet, where I don't have to wear a different length skirt or, I don't know, different color lipstick. I don't know. I don't do it, so I don't know what it is that people do, but I was really ready to stop wearing a costume. So I don't know. I don't know what costumes you wear. I don't know what tight little straitjackets you're zipping yourself up into. So I don't know what Vessel is going to do for you, because when you put that costume down, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you're meant to be. Only you would know that. But that's what Vessel is designed to do. Help you bring you back to yourself so you can step into who you're meant to be, not who I think you should be. I don't know. I don't even know who I'm meant to be. We're figuring this out together. Some of you have asked me, is this like therapy? No, it's not. This is not therapy. It's not at all. It doesn't replace therapy. If you're somebody who needs therapy because you've been through something and could use that kind of formal professional help, you should be getting that formal professional help. Can Vessel be done in conjunction with therapy? Absolutely. Vessel is one of those great things where you get to do your journaling, you get to do your growth, and you get to talk about it with your support system, with your therapist, and do that at the same time. And that's fantastic, but it's not a replacement for therapy. So if you're worried about, which one should I choose? If you have the question of which one should you choose, you should probably choose therapy, right? If you're considering that therapy might be a good option for you, it probably is. You can always take Vessel next year when your therapist says that you're ready for that. It's not a replacement. And I know some of us have an aversion to therapy, like, oh, what does it mean if I need a therapist? I have a therapist. She's fantastic. I call her my coffee date with myself. It's a place where I get to go and sit on someone's couch and hear myself think out loud. That's what therapy is. We all need someone who can be a support system for us, and we all deserve that. And Vessel is great. Vessel's fantastic, but it isn't therapy. And yes, it's great that we have a WhatsApp group for the women. I know there are men joining the cohort this year for the first time. That's a little new for me. It's a little different. I wasn't sure how I felt about opening it up, but I got a lot of requests, and it's something that I'm willing to look into, especially being that Vessel is a prerequisite for my facilitator training. So anybody who ever wants to be in my facilitator training would have to familiarize themselves with this work. So the WhatsApp group is still only for women, but the course is open to everyone for the first time. And again, intimidated on my end because it's a new experience for me, but also exciting because in the past we've had husbands join, their wives have done Vessel and they were kind of watching along, and hearing the feedback from the men who were kind of along for the ride was so valuable to me, understanding that they also need this. Men also we're all struggling with the same framework for how to walk ourselves home. We all need this. Men and women may need it a little bit differently. We may come at this a little bit differently. We may have been raised a little bit differently. We may have internalized a different set of beliefs, but at the end of the day, the path is the same for us all. We all need to work on self-love. We all need to reclaim our shadow parts. We all need to learn the mastery of emotions. So this is the first year that we're opening it up to a wider audience, and I'm excited about it. It's not a course for people who are still fighting, which is funny for me to say, because like I said, I was a fighter for so long. Let's bring down the system. I was angry and I was sad. And I even wrote this course from that place in a large sense. But if I have to look back now, and I have revamped the course a number of times since its inception. Those of you who are here for, again, you know that every year I end up just putting more into the course, my heart and soul, and so much of it. I feel like I can never move on. I want to move on from Vessel. I want to create more content. I want to do more, but Vessel is that thing that I still keep coming back to. There's always more. And from this place of more, looking back, I would say, for someone who's still in an angry place, who's still externalizing that, basically seeing someone else, when I said, like, it was the world that hurt me, it was the people that hurt me, and it's true. I'm not justifying what people have done to me, right? But that mindset was not the mindset I needed to be in to get to this place. The mindset that helped me get to this place was realizing that I actually can't control the world. I can't change people. I can't decide what happens to me, but I can decide how it affects me. And that gave me that empowerment to say, am I a victim or am I a creator of my own reality? And when I decided to be a creator, when I decided to write a book about cancer that can also be really funny and make people laugh, that's the mindset for people taking Vessel. People who want to laugh, people who want to grow. We can cry too. I cry. I was going to say I cry plenty, but I don't. I joke about my not being able to feel. I cry in private. Okay. It's for people who are ready to feel and take responsibility for their feelings and be with it, be present with the full gamut of life experience. But if you're still in a place where you're deeply hurting, deeply wounding, could use a little more support, probably Vessel is not the best bet at this time. It's not the worst bet. You'll definitely gain something from it, and you can always come back again and again. You might get a small percentage this year and you might get more next year, but it's just when people are concerned or they're confused and they're not really sure where to go with this. I like to be honest. I like to tell you where it's at. I feel like Vessel, for me, the greatest takeaway, I know I mentioned this idea of coming home a lot because I think we're all looking for that. But my greatest piece about Vessel is that it's a place where you become more than just your story, more than the things that have happened to you, more than you ever thought was possible for yourself, learning to believe in yourself a whole new way. That's what really comes out of Vessel for me. People who are waking up in the morning saying Moda'ani, which is a gratitude prayer, and really meaning it. Opening their eyes every day and saying, I am so lucky. I am so grateful that I get to do this for another whole day. Isn't this the best feeling ever? For me, that's what Vessel really comes down to. If we're living a life where we're saying Moda'ani anyway, shouldn't we feel it? I want to thank you all for coming onto the call, for joining me this morning while I ramble on and on about the heart that beats a little bit outside of my chest, which is what Vessel is. Somebody asked on the Zoom chat why I don't offer continued access to the course content. That's such a great question, and I'm glad you put it in here because I want to talk about it a little bit. Vessel is a course that runs for 8 weeks between Sukkot and Hanukkah, and then you get an additional 8 weeks to finish the course. It's a lot of content. If you want to do it right, if you have nothing better to do with your life, you can easily devote 8 to 10 hours a week just on Vessel alone, between the lectures, between the Q&As. Yes, lectures are recorded. You can watch that in your own time. You can watch it on double speed because that's what I would do. The Q&As, you can comment. They're Thursday mornings. They're live on Zoom. They're recorded. You get access to the Q&As after, so you never have the pressure to be there live. And then there's journaling and there's meditations. And if you wanted to do it all, if you wanted to cram in every last ounce of Vessel, you could probably be busy with it 8 to 10 hours a week. Realistically, no one is giving this course 8 to 10 hours a week. Also, it's a lot. Sometimes you're going to have that week where it's too much for you and you're not going to be able to complete all the coursework. So you get an additional 8 weeks to do it, but that's it. The reason I don't keep it open forever is because statistically, people don't finish courses. When you know you have a course available to you forever, you just don't end up coming back to it. You kind of leave it there. I mean, I'm guilty of that. I have like 13 open tabs on my computer. Well, I have like 400 open tabs on my computer, but probably 13 of them are courses that I have paid for, never completed, and some barely started, because that's the thing. When you know you can come back to it, you don't have that motivation. So Vessel is only open for the time that I teach it. That's your motivation, to get it done within a certain framework. After that, it closes and you have to wait till next year to rejoin. And you will rejoin next year, free of charge. Once you've paid for Vessel, once you're in the system, you automatically get re-added the next new cohort that opens. So it's your motivation to stay with the program. It's your motivation to do this with an amazing cohort of people. It's your motivation to log in, ask your questions while I'm giving the live Q&As. And also, it's permission to not have to do it all, because you can come back next year. Someone asked if you can access Vessel through the phone, through calling in. You cannot. It's a matter of what works for me, and what works for me is to have this streamlined on Kajabi, which is an online platform. My Q&As are done over Zoom. Technically, when it's the live calls, you can technically call in and listen, because there's usually a call-in number for Zoom. I don't operate with that. It makes things too complicated for me. So this is a course that is available only online. The meditations, however, are downloadable. And that is something that I encourage you to do, because the course does close after a certain amount of time. So I always tell my students, download the meditations, because when the course closes, you're going to want to have those meditations downloaded so that you can listen to them at any time. And of course, there's a beautiful workbook. Let me see if I can get it for you. This is it. There's a beautiful workbook that you're going to have access to. It's like 125 pages. Where's my camera? 125 pages of like journaling and kind of documenting your journey, which is so amazing. Some of you are writers, some of you, this is going to be your best friend. This is going to be that thing that you're going to check back in with every year to see how much you've grown. You're going to compare your workbooks from year to year, what you wrote last year at this time, what you wrote this year at this time. It's going to be fantastic. Some of you are not journalers at all. Some of you focus on the meditations, and some of you just like listening to the lectures in the car and not doing anything else. And that's fine. Whatever kind of learner you are, whether you're an auditory learner, you like listening, you're a kinesthetic learner, you like writing, you like meditating, you like watching me on a screen because I'm that adorable. Whatever kind of brain you have, however you learn, there's something in this course for you, and there's no need to do it all. Any last questions before we wrap up? Did I really do it? Did I really do it? Did I really answer all of your questions? Did I really say it all? I think that's a first for me. Really? There's no more questions? There's no more? I got everything? Thank you, everybody. It has been such a privilege, such an honor to be with you here today, and I cannot wait to welcome you to our 6th cohort of Vessel, starting right after Sukkot, November 3rd. Thank you so much. Have Gemar Chasima Tova, and we'll see you again soon.